Okay. Here I go again. I am honored, absolutely honored, to be the one to introduce our next speaker. And our next speaker is Steve Surovic. And Steve is, as I think you know and as he told us, the new leader in the Pennsylvania Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. Steve was appointed by Governor Tom Corbett and the Labor and Industry Secretary Julia Harthway as Executive Director of the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and that occurred on September 6th of this year. As OVR Executive Director, Steve provides leadership and oversight of the State Federal Vocational Rehabilitation Program, including the Hiram G. Andrews Center. And I heard about the Hiram G. Andrews Center from the great Dr. Passanelli, the Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and the Bureau of Blindness and Visual Services. Steve directs the provision of vocational rehabilitation and independent living services on a statewide basis in accordance with applicable federal and state laws and regulations, as well as policies of the State Board of Vocational Rehabilitation. Prior to his appointment, Steve was the executive director of the ARC of Pennsylvania, a statewide nonprofit organization that provides advocacy and resources for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. Earlier in his career, Steve was a presidential appointee at the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities. He served as the director of the Erie County, Pennsylvania, Department of Human Services, and he was policy director and deputy secretary for health promotion and disease prevention at the Pennsylvania Department of Health. Steve's background in public service included positions as executive policy specialist and chair of the governor's disability policy team at the Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare, and he was legislative assistant at the office of Congressman Tom Ridge, who himself is a great advocate on behalf of individuals with disability and a great witness. Steve has been recognized by many organizations and professional societies for his contributions to the development of public policy and responsible program administration. Steve earned his master's degree in public and international affairs at the University of Pittsburgh. Ed and I lived in Pittsburgh for 2 years, a lovely city. And please join me in a warm welcome to Steve Surovic. I want to mention one other thing that's not on these papers. I met Steve this morning. I knew the name. Obviously, you know, good news travels fast to Washington, that he was your new Pennsylvania director of OVR. I'm very impressed, as is Ed. And I also want to thank you, Steve, for not only being here and agreeing to present, but for bringing so many, and this is the 4th time I've said this, Steve, for bringing so many of your wonderful, qualified staff with you. It is a pleasure to introduce you. Steve, could you come up, please, to the stage? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. I've got good news for everybody. I'm not actually speaking. I was asked to introduce our special guest, Commissioner Ruttledge, and I'm happy to do that. I've been on the job for 4 weeks, so I haven't been on the job long enough to know anything and to spend valuable time presenting to you. So I am pleased to be here. I am pleased to be the new Executive Director of the Office of Vocational Rehab for Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I'm happy to be in Scranton. Prior to this job, I didn't really have a chance to come up here very often, and I've already had the chance to come to Scranton a couple times in the last couple of weeks, and it's a beautiful city, and I've been able to stay. I was able to stay at the Radisson Hotel last evening at the train station, or what looks to be the old train station, and it's fabulous. So I appreciate the opportunity to introduce the Commissioner. I am pleased to be here and see all the wonderful folks in the audience, everybody here. I feel like I am with family because just folks who have dedicated their lives to supporting people with disabilities, adults and children with disabilities. And so I feel really, really at home at this conference, and I hope to be here for the next, every conference for the next 10 years, if I'm so fortunate to be in this position. So I'm going to now move the program along, and I am going to introduce the individual who I'm sure you're all here to hear, and we're very fortunate to have Commissioner Ruttledge from Washington, D.C. to be in Scranton, Pennsylvania to speak with us. So I've got about a little bit of information about the Commissioner. It's worth listening to because her career is quite valuable in terms of what she's going to be able to offer us today. So give me just a few minutes, and I'm going to tell you all about Commissioner Ruttledge. It's my privilege and honor to introduce our keynote speaker for the afternoon. She traveled from our nation's capital to be with us today. Last year, she addressed us from the New England by video teleconference. This year, our schedule meshed perfectly, and she is with us in person. Lynnae M. Ruttledge was appointed by President Barack Obama and confirmed by the full U.S. Senate on December 24, 2009, as the Commissioner of the Rehabilitation Services Administration in the U.S. Department of Education. As RSA Commissioner, she provides leadership and fiscal resources to assist states and other agencies, public and private, to provide vocational rehabilitation, independent living, and other services to individuals with disabilities. The Congress established RSA and the Commissioner as the principal federal agency authorized to carry out Titles 1, 3, 6, as well as Section 509 of the Rehabilitation Act. In addition, the Commissioner is responsible for programs under the Randolph-Shepard Act, the Assistive Technology Act of 1998, and the Helen Keller Center for Deafblind Youth and Adults Act. The programs and activities under the leadership and supervision of the Commissioner serve some 1 million individuals with disabilities each year and successfully find employment for almost 200,000 persons annually. Congress appropriates $3 billion to operate these programs, projects, and activities each year. After a short time in the Commissioner's job, Ms. Ruttledge responded favorably to the administration's request to serve briefly as the acting director of the National Institute on Disability and Rehabilitation Research. This is the $100 million research and demonstration arm of the vocational rehabilitation and independent living programs. Commissioner Ruttledge came to Washington, D.C. from her position as director of the Vocational Rehabilitation Program in the state of Washington. Prior to that, she served for 17 years in the Oregon Vocational Rehabilitation Program. She began her career in public service as a classroom teacher in Michigan, where she earned her BA degree from Northern Michigan University. Ms. Ruttledge is the recipient of numerous awards for her contributions to the program administration and public policy development that make equal the opportunity and enhance the lives of all people with disabilities. Especially noteworthy are her designation as a Switzer Scholar, recipient of the Washington Governor's Award for Leadership and Management, and cited by the Oregon Governor as, quote, Disabled Oregonian of the Year. Perhaps the most interesting bit of information about Commissioner Ruttledge's distinguished career in rehabilitation is that she now heads the $3 billion public-private partnership in vocational rehabilitation that once provided the services and supports that she needed to maximize her talents and to prepare for her opportunities and options that allow her to enrich the lives of others. We are indeed fortunate to have her with us this afternoon, so please join me in a warm Scranton, Pennsylvania welcome for Commissioner Ruttledge.
Okay, so I'm shorter than Steve, so I've pulled the microphone down. Well, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that people have taken up all of my time. The good news is I'm going to get you out of here on time, so I've got about 15 minutes to dazzle you. No, because we've got other speakers who are going to be coming. So let me just share with you some of my thoughts as being the commissioner and things that I think are important for you to understand that we're doing across the country. It's too easy for us to hear the bad news. You see it on the news, you see it in the newspapers, you hear about budgets being cut, you hear about the kind of catastrophic nature of what's going on in our country. And we know that people with disabilities are adversely affected when all of those things happen. But I am absolutely an optimist, and I absolutely believe in the work that we do in the public voc rehab program, and the partnerships that we have with business, and the staff that we have every day working together with their partners and making employment happen, because we never forget that we have high expectations, that people with significant disabilities have, by their very nature, come to us with a lot of hope, that we're going to help them find jobs, that we're going to do, as Kathy was describing, help lead them to a place where they are able to be self-sufficient, they are able to support their families, they are able to be a part of the community, and that they're viewed as assets. So I want to share with you some of the great stuff that I've seen over the past year and a half as I've traveled across the country, just to give you an idea of what it is that we're doing, not just here in Pennsylvania, but across the country every single day, as we, as was described in my introduction, serve about 1 million people every year. And we're making those connections with them and their families and with educators and with the businesses, and people are indeed becoming employed. I think that one of the most important things that we have and what we bring to our jobs every day is that we impart that expectation that people with significant disabilities are going to be able to be employed. We believe that. We believe in competitive integrated employment. We believe that people with significant disabilities are going to benefit from the public education system. They are going to finish high school. They are going to go on to college when that's appropriate for them. They're going to get great jobs, and they're going to have careers. And they're going to be a part of the economic engine that moves this country forward. I absolutely believe that. So when we come into our jobs every day and we have those high expectations and we impart that with the people we're serving, we then can share that expectation and really understand that it's from us that people with disabilities really do believe that their lives are changed, and that through those high expectations, we not only impact that individual who's come to us for services, they've impacted us. And we, together with their families and with educators and with our partners in the community and with employers, are actually able to see that people with disabilities are indeed becoming employed. And they are having careers. And not just a job, but actually having careers. So when I've been out talking to folks over the past year and a half, I've listened to people like David, and David was wonderful this morning, really being able to share how poor expectations and how being in a school system that wasn't even thinking about accommodating a student who's blind was able to look at challenging himself and literally changing outcomes for himself to a place where he brings that now, not just to Pennsylvania, but to a national audience, because he's a part of the network of public vocational rehabilitation programs. One of the things that we've seen really make a difference, not just here in Pennsylvania, but you've done a really good job with this, is that we're creating internship opportunities and work experiences and service learning opportunities, and all of those ways that people with disabilities can start to demonstrate that they have the skills to be able to be successful. We're using those as career pathways. We're using those as the ways that people with disabilities can get more onto their resume because they've done an internship. They've had a work experience. They've had short-term jobs. They've had long-term jobs. But they're coming to the world of work with those credentials that we in our program hadn't necessarily put together in the past. And what I'm seeing both here in Pennsylvania but also across the country is that our program is focusing on using our resources and leveraging other resources to create those opportunities so that people can get great jobs. We're finding that our focus on competitive, integrated employment really resonates with people. And we can show examples like the story that Steve was sharing about Tawan. We recently entered into a partnership with the U.S. Business Leadership Network and with CSAVR and the NET to be able to identify a very small group out of the more than 4.9 million people with disabilities that are currently employed across the country, to start to highlight every day during the month of October employment of people with disabilities. And Tawan's story is one of those stories that we're going to be placing not just on our website, but on the USBLN's website and on the CSAVR website. So that every day people can kind of get this lift and read about Max or read about any one of the 25 stories that we've identified and placed on our website. And we'll be doing that every day throughout the month of October. So I encourage you to think about not just the success story that you heard about Tawan, but the other success stories that are going on every single day. In the Rehabilitation Services Administration, we've made a really strong focus on transition, not just because the Senate draft said, you need to do a better job on transition, but because we really believe that that's a place that we're making a difference every day by working together with educators and with families and with businesses about the transition of students, whether it's from secondary, from high school to post-secondary, or from post-secondary to employment, or directly from high school into employment. And what we know is that by telling those stories, what we are able to then show is that people are being successful. And here are the partners that are contributing to that success. And here are those businesses, whether it's in the public sector or the private sector, that are using their ability to say, this just makes good sense. This is a great return on our investment. So you hear Lowe's and you hear Walgreens and you hear a variety of other private sector partners. And now you're hearing about public sector partners in the healthcare industry, in government, who are creating opportunities for youth as they transition through a program called Project Search. And I know you have Project Search here in Pennsylvania. We've been working together with the Social Security Administration to be able to look at how can we focus more on students and adults with disabilities who are completing their academic programs and making sure they get great jobs. There are too many stories of people that go through school, graduate from high school, get an associate's degree, get a couple of associate's degrees, get a bachelor's degree, get a master's degree, get a couple of master's degrees, get a doctorate, and then they don't get jobs. Because the attitudes of people with disabilities is that they should be able to get a job, but the attitudes of the employers still shy away from employing people, especially people with significant disabilities. And the Social Security Administration and RSA are really committed to turning that around. And so we want to figure out how do we create an environment where it really is about college grads getting great jobs. Because we know that people with disabilities bring something unique to the workplace. They bring talents and skills and problem-solving skills that other people don't have to do and don't have to use. My husband uses assistive technology every single day just to be able to hear. his ability to use technology brings to the workplace a very different set of skills than other people have. People like Kathy's brother brings a unique set of skills to the workplace that other people don't have. And what we want to do is make sure that people recognize that people with significant disabilities, especially folks who have finished academic programs, have a lot to offer. So when we created with the USBON and with CSAVR our websites to be able to showcase those success stories, we wanted to show people from across the country doing a wide variety of jobs with a wide variety of skills in the public sector, in the private sector, people that are running their own businesses, and places where business is really the leader in hiring people with disabilities, and show people what's possible. I do work for this administration, and it's really an honor to do that. And the administration last year, the president signed an executive order. And his intent was that federal government should be a model employer. We have the resources, we have the skills, we have the reach, because federal government doesn't just exist in Washington, D.C., and that's a good thing, but they really are in offices throughout the country. And the federal government should be a model employer. And he challenged, President Obama challenged all federal agencies to work together to increase the employment of people with disabilities by a very modest amount. His goal is 100,000 additional people with disabilities becoming employed over these next 4 years. Well, I give a lot of credit to anyone who steps out there and sets a really good goal. And so in addition to what the president has set out, Senator Tom Harkin went to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce about 2 months ago, and he said, we need to change how we look at people with disabilities. We need to increase the employment of people with disabilities. And his goal, and it's one that I think everyone should embrace, is that we should move from 4.9 million people right now today who are people with disabilities who are employed to more than 6 million by 2015. And he set that out to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber of Commerce said, that's a great idea. So my recommendation to you is that as you go back to your communities, go and talk to your local Chamber of Commerce. Go and talk to local business and say, how can we be a part of what the president has set out, what Senator Tom Harkin has set out? What are those ways that we can substantially increase the employment of people with disabilities? There's, across the country, from the visits I've done with transition conferences, I had a chance to, by videotape, talk with the Pennsylvania Transition Conference. And I've had a chance to be in Georgia and Alabama and Virginia and California and all across the country where transition advocates are getting together. And every time, what I've challenged people to do is the next time that you're in a group with a lot of young people with disabilities, and especially people that have intellectual or developmental disabilities, I want you to kind of do a poll with people. And I did this at a conference recently, and it was a real eye-opener for me. And I said to this group of like 400 people, a lot of them were students and a lot of family members, and I said, how many of you have been involved in or participated in an internship? And there's like 3 or 4 hands that go up out of 400. I said, so how many of you have had vocational exploration or a chance to do disability mentoring day, or had a chance to do a job shadow, or all the things that we know help introduce the world of work to people with disabilities? And very few hands went up. And then I said, how many of you have been involved in Special Olympics? almost every single hand in the room went up. And I said, we need to change our focus so that we use the same energy and passion and commitment that we have around people's investment in Special Olympics, to change that to how does that translate to work skills? And how will we create that same level of energy so that the next time that I'm in a group of 400 people and I'm asking students with disabilities what their preparation is for employment, that every one of them can raise their hand and say, I've had a chance to do an internship, I've had a chance to do a work experience, I had a summer job, I did a service learning project, and I know where I want my career to go. Rather than us as a country having not had that opportunity to engage with young people with disabilities and inspiring them to be all that they can be. Because I think that's where we bring our talents and skills. We have high expectations of people with disabilities. They have high expectations of us. They think we're going to help them be able to get great jobs. I think that we need to use the passion and the energy and the expertise and the partnerships that we have with business, both in the public sector and the private sector, to change the outcome for youth with disabilities so that they can and they will be able to leave school with a job, and they can and they will be able to be economically self-sufficient. I think that's what our goal needs to be. Thank you so much for having me speak to you today. I will be around for the rest of the afternoon. I look forward to meeting you individually. But again, thanks for coming to the 10th Annual Disabilities Conference. And thanks again to everyone for being so warm and you're welcome with me. Thank you. See, I like Patricia because she and I are the same height. That's really wonderful.
You're shorter than I am. Actually, I think I'm shorter than you are. I've got heels on. Commissioner, thank you so much for being with us. This is a small token of our appreciation.
Oh, this has been great.
And I would like to say, we do not have a date yet for next year's conference, but when that date is set, we will contact you, Commissioner. I'm putting you on the spot. And we would very much like to have you back as a keynote speaker. We will make arrangements for a ride from Washington, D.C., no planes, a ride from Washington, D.C. to Scranton, and we will be more than glad to put you up at the Radisson Hotel. And then we will drive you back along with whomever else would like to go back to Washington with us. It is a pleasure to have you here. You are a terrific person and a terrific commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Patricia. That's wonderful. This is lovely. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to take a short break. There is, you remember that gigantic anniversary cake we had displayed at lunch? It is cut up in nice plates outside in the lobby, along with some beverages. And we tried for champagne, but I don't think that would work at the university at this time of day. So we have some sparkling beverages outside for you as well. And then we're going to go right into our afternoon concurrent sessions for 3:15 sharp. So one is in here, and the other two are down around the corner right here on the 4th floor. So thank you very much.